Good. Okay, so it's recording. Hello, and welcome to Lynn Hansen Gallery. This month I have a very exciting artist who I've known for almost 10 years. She has a gallery, core gallery up on Prefontaine, and my first original gallery, Fraker Scott Gallery, was on Prefontaine Street. We knew each other and worked next to each other. So I'm very happy to have her here. She and her husband, Steve, started Core Gallery. It's a great gallery. So
along with John Smither, just a shout out.
Yeah. So I'm just going to make a couple gallery announcements first, and then I'll introduce you to Žanetka. So I just want to announce that our gallery is open and we may have people coming through here, which would be cool because we like to see people walking around. But the gallery is open Fridays and Saturdays from 11 to 4. And we've had a lot of people coming in. Right now we're not wearing masks because we're both vaccinated and we're comfortable, but I'm sensitive to people who are not comfortable, and I'm happy to wear a mask if we have our masks right here. And I'm very happy to, whatever your comfort level is, to meet you at that comfort level. So I just have a couple announcements about the gallery. I'm happy to say that our 8th annual Icon Prospectus is now on the website. And the Icon Show is a juried show, and it happens every year in September, the entire month of September. The works that are selected by a juror to be in the Icon Show are up on the website and also in the gallery. And the Icon Show, the deadline this year to apply is August 8th. And the juror is Dawn Laurent, and she's had 30 years experience in the arts as an educator and an art appraiser. She worked in the Bay Area quite a bit and in the Asian Art Museum. So she's a very experienced both artist. She does beautiful art and has been in the business with galleries and museums. So she knows a lot. Also, so you can get the prospectus on my website, lynnhansengallery.com. And also Jesse Reno workshop is in August. It's August 27th through 29th. It's going to be in Edmonds at the Artworks building. It's a nice big building that we'll be able to spread out. And as of today, the class is full. The workshop is full, but I am taking names for a waiting list. So in case anybody can't make it, that we will have that waiting list. And then the Donna Watson Wabi Sabi workshop is coming up October 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it's going to be held in the gallery, and I have a limit of 10 students. And the Wabi Sabi workshop is a lot of fun. It's she gets washi papers that we pay a $15 fee, and we do painting on papers and then collaging. And she has a very strong Japanese aesthetic that's very beautiful. And the idea of wabi sabi is that anything that's used and tattered, old kimonos that are patched, become very beautiful. And so that's kind of the aesthetic she has and what she teaches in her class. It's a really fun class. We've had it here a couple of years. So you can get the information for that on my gallery website as well. And so now I would like to introduce Žanetka. Help me with your last name.
Gawronski.
And just go ahead and talk about yourself a little bit. Let us know your background in art and what you're doing as far as the college you work in. And we can ask anybody that has questions, feel free to ask.
Okay. So usually the first question that people have is, where does your name come from? So Žanetka, that's my first name. And I was born in the former Czechoslovakia. So it's no longer a country. I am Slovak. And usually the next question is, but you don't have an accent. It's like, well, I don't have an accent in Slovak either. However, I do remember as a little kid having to translate for my mom and dad at parent-teacher conferences. and talk about instant karma. So yeah, anyway, so that's usually the first string of questions. I studied formally at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts in Philadelphia. I was accepted with a painting portfolio and then graduated with a degree in sculpture, and lived in Philadelphia for a while and exhibited my work and did a lot of kind of set design, dance theater troupes, that sort of thing. And then decided to move to Seattle and started working actually at the Seattle Art Museum, started getting involved more in the arts that way. And then got involved with education. I never thought that I would be a teacher, but found myself as a professor at the Art Institute of Seattle for 18 years. And yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then recently, I decided to go to a different college. So I applied at Highline College. And the reason that I did is because Highline, it's an incredible college that's accessible to everyone. And it's in a part of our town where urban planning has made it quite a challenge for folks in South Seattle, South King County to have access to a world-class art education. And so that's part of why I went to Highline College, was so because
That's wonderful.
yeah, like you shouldn't have, like only people that are super wealthy, they're not the only ones that should have access to fine arts education. So I'm super excited because gosh, last year was crazy, right, with the pandemic, but one super exciting thing that happened is that I actually was granted tenure as a fine arts professor. So
Congratulations.
yeah,
That's amazing.
totally caught a unicorn. It's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nobody gets that.
No, not in fine arts. I know.
Wow.
I know. So I feel super, super fortunate and really excited to be able to like work with those students and just it's so much more accessible to folks. And so I'm a professor and I teach fine arts classes. I teach figure drawing and painting and sculpture and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then
Wow.
yeah, and so then when I first became a professor, I made myself a promise that the day that I stop working in my studio is the last day that I'll walk into the classroom, simply because I should not teach from theory. Now, theory is important, but so the struggles that I have in the studio, I am teaching about them in the classroom. It's like, I get it. Like, that was really hard glazing that painting. Yes. So yeah, so that's my background. And then I've done some public works. And so most recently I applied and was accepted as a mural artist for Sound Transit. And because we're gonna have
It's hard.
Yeah, and so there's gonna be a new light rail stop across from the college. And so they needed murals for the temporary fencing. And so I was able to paint murals for that, which was really great. And then right before COVID, I applied and actually am a Washington State curator now for public works. Yes.
Oh,
I know.
yes.
I know.
Gosh.
I know. But it's
Big time.
yeah, so it's a 3-year position, and who knows if I'll be able to actually facilitate the work that goes into a public building during this time. I mean, there's tons of construction, but it's all full steam ahead. It's all, yeah, who knows? We'll see. But it's quite an honor. I feel very honored.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so then I still am, super excited to have this show with you, Lynn, and really excited to keep working in the studio. So this last year also, we've all had our challenges with the pandemic and everything. I mean, we could spend the whole time talking about how it has affected people disproportionately and the incredible trauma that has occurred. In my world, I'm very blessed. We're safe, we're healthy. I have a roof over my head, but yet, even within that position, it was really challenging for me to process and to create work. I think because there was just so much input.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Totally. So much it was so so much insecurity in ways that were new
Yep.
and manifesting,
Oh, yeah.
quickly, right? And so, so then when this show came up in your gallery, then I pulled from previous bodies of work to put the show together. And I realized that the work that I've been doing, that what I'm interested in, these moments where there's a quiet reflection, that it's like, it's almost dreamlike because it's so clear, right? That's what I'm very much interested in painting.
Mhm.
And when I pulled all this work together, it also, I felt like, oh my gosh, like this is so appropriate for this time that we're going through during this pandemic. Just,
Perfect.
you know, these moments of just quiet introspection where you don't expect them.
Mhm.
And so that really is the crux of the stories that I want to tell with my artwork. It's very much the human condition. It's very much just, we are so much more than the patterns we create to get through the day, going to work, getting up, making dinner, whatever it is. There's so much more going on, and that's what I'm interested in. So
That's really exciting. And that's what I like is paintings that have a sense of mystery and draw you in, that you don't know all the answers. I really appreciate that about Žanetka's work, and I've always been drawn to it over the years. So
nice, thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
So Liz, do you want to show us one of the pieces, and Žanetka can talk about it, and so people can
No,
see?
I'm not picking. Nope. You have to pick. But I wanted to just touch on what you said about that. And I had just seen an article. Oh, it was even just a Twitter thread this morning. Someone is trying to teach a class about beauty and joy in the arts as a form of rebellion, or like just as a statement of it in itself. And it's so much better than saying, oh, that's just pretty art. I want important art. To me, it was more like, no, we can make these beautiful pieces as a point, right? Because it is still life, because it is still important. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Liz. And, you know, Liz, off of what you're saying too, is that I think that one of the most politically active things that you can do that will shake the foundation is to create beauty.
That's
Honestly,
There you go.
really,
Yep.
There
really,
you go.
because it's
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
what happens when you create beauty, and then the concentric rings, the unintended consequences of that are profound,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So
Beautiful. Yep.
yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right. I feel better. I'm good.
So this is Steve chiming in. Can you all hear me?
I see.
Yes.
We can hear
Hi,
you.
Steve.
Oh, so maybe before we get to looking at a piece or two, I wanted to ask kind of a nuts and bolts question from such an experienced artist. So could you tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts of a studio practice versus like having a job? How do you spend time in your studio, and have you had a favorite studio over time, and you're always like, oh, I wish I was back at the academy? Or could you just ruminate a little bit on the nuts and bolts of the time and the place that you work in?
That's a really good question. And in the spirit of full disclosure, Steve is actually very important to me. He's my husband, and so that's probably why I'm smiling warmly when I hear his voice. So I just wanted to, in full disclosure. No, but it is a really good question, Steve. And so in terms of studio practice, and in terms of like favorite studios, so the first thing that comes to my mind is that the studio can happen anywhere, and that it sounds so mysterious, but it really isn't. I'm always working simply because I am paying attention, do you know? And so like,
Oh, yeah.
you cross the street and you see something and you're like, oh, wow. Okay. And so that's starting to feed right in. And I have no
So,
idea.
so
Like,
it's not, so you're kind of saying that, art is not just this thing that happens in a lab.
no, yes, yes,
Okay.
exactly what you said. So art is not something that happens in a lab. And so the studio, what's important about the studio, and the studio it can be a sketchbook, it can be a tabletop, it can be a room. It can even be a rug on the floor that when you step into that is the place where you're working. And so the studio, it changes, and every time you change it, I have found every time I have changed my studio, the work changes, right? And
Interesting.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that it's because it's the container. It's the place where it's like things can bounce off the walls and then kind of come together, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and so, but that can be anywhere. And so the point being that you don't need a special thing that is inaccessible. Like if it's a sketchbook, like that can very much be your studio because you're holding it and you can work in it, and so then the nuts and bolts. So that's just really quickly, those are my thoughts of studio, because I've always had a studio with a bed in it, right? And so whatever space you can create in, right? The nuts and bolts of a fine arts practice is just simply go to the studio for 10 minutes a day. That's it. It doesn't matter what you
Yep.
do, just go there, do it, show up. That's the biggest thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, right, Liz? I mean, it's like,
Agreed. Oh yeah.
So it's
and
the tenacity of being, uh, having, so daily, or, as much as you can, spending time thinking about art and being in that place. It's not just this, oh, I'm inspired this month, I'm going to make some work.
right.
It's a deliberate
Yep.
cognitive activity that you participate in.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
horribly uncomfortable at times. like seriously,
Right?
it's awful. Like there are times that I go
Yeah.
to the studio and I'm like, all I can do is to sharpen pencils because I've tried to touch that
Yes.
piece and I've destroyed it.
I have that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or for me, it's important that I have a studio that I can has enough room that I can lay on the floor, because sometimes I just lay on the floor and I'm like, what the bleepity bleepy bleep am I doing here? But that's part of it.
Right.
It's part of it. And it's
Yeah.
because we're not just one function. We're not a machine, right? We're a systemic organism that it requires all the pieces, all your senses. So yeah, so the nuts and bolts is just show up, whatever you're doing. It's like, just even make it like a phone, like a reminder on your phone, just spend 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden an hour goes by and you're like, oh, time to go
Yeah.
a glass of water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Žanetka. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had that experience during COVID, as I had no inspiration at all, and I would just go into the studio and paint lines. Or
Yes.
just do something with my
Yes.
hands.
Anything.
That didn't turn out to be anything, but it was just picking up the materials and doing something, or getting an old painting and just painting over it and see if I can make it better.
Yes. Or even destroying stuff.
Yes.
Like it's really important.
Yep.
Because I think that what happens sometimes is that we get really precious about our stuff, right?
Yes,
it's like,
for sure.
oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Right? I figured this out and oh, I've gotten good feedback. I need to keep doing it. So I think sometimes it's really important to push it until you've gone too far and you've destroyed it, and then play with reeling it in, bringing it back.
That's good.
Yeah.
I do think that's important.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I've been having conversations with a couple different people who I think people get stuck by taking a class and then not knowing how to emerge from the class to practice. And they'd rather have someone tell them what to do. And a lot of the stuff in social media is prompts, like, oh, just give me a prompt, I'll do that. It's like, you've got to make that move to, like you say, just once a day, doesn't matter how long, And then for that 10 minutes, I find it often starts the seed of the next thing.
It does. Yeah.
And if I don't do the 10 minutes, I don't got the seed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and it could even be like what I was saying, it's like I'm walking around and I see something on the street and it's like, huh. And so maybe I create my own prompts, right? And it's like, okay,
yes.
do I remember what that crinkled coffee cup looked like that we drove over this morning in the car, right? And try to draw that or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just to open it up. The other thing too, so in terms of studio practice is that there's two other kind of little tricks that I do for myself, is that whenever I start a new kind of body of work, right? And so that's going to happen within the short amount of time, probably in the next 10 days, you know, is that I will give myself assignments. I will usually start with a still life drawing because that's where I got my chops, was at a very traditional art school. So I'll go back to what I know and I will just do a still life drawing and see where that leads. And if it doesn't lead anywhere, then I'll do a painting based on the drawing and get rid of the still life. And then if that doesn't lead anywhere, I'll maybe do a drawing from the painting or something. So it becomes this iterative process of removing me from observation and going inward into interpretation, you know? And so that's one trick that I'll do, right? Is just keep doing that. And then the other thing is that, sorry to all of the parents that are telling their kids to clean their room when I say this, but serious though, is that I will make sure that at the end of a session, I don't clean my palette, because what it does is that when I come back the next time and I see it, it triggers to where I left off. Do you know? And then I'll clean it if I need to, and then start again. So just those kinds of, it's like I need to leave breadcrumbs for myself, you know?
I love that. Yeah.
Right.
Good.
Wow.
Really good.
That's great.
Fascinating.
I'm learning
Nice.
a lot already.
Yay! This is so fun to communicate with everyone.
Yeah.
It's been missing, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has.
I can see why you got tenure,
Oh,
because you're a very good teacher.
Well,
So
thank you.
Yeah. I'm
appreciate
glad. Yeah.
that.
Can you show us new arrival, Liz?
Ooh, yes, I can. Did you put them in alphabetical order for me by any chance?
It's the
Maybe you did.
I did. I didn't.
New arrival. Nope.
Did I?
Nope. I don't see it. Hang on. I see new commute.
Nope.
You could start with that one since you have it,
Sure.
and then when later we'll do.
Yeah, but what am I missing? I don't see that one.
You know what?
Some of the pieces are not.
Yeah,
in
I
the-
might.
That might be one that's not here. So
Yeah.
show us new commute.
Okay, I can do that. It
should
was here. Oh yeah. All right, sharing screen.
Mhm. All right.
So tell us.
Would you like to know about this painting?
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, so the unicyclist up on the power lines. So throughout all of my paintings, these kind of icons start to emerge that I use over and over again. And they're symbolic of little different sub-stories, right? And so ultimately, every painting is a story. And so with the power lines and the unicyclists, for one thing, I just remember as a small kid, like sitting in the car as we're zooming down the road. And I remember watching the power lines and just, you know, pretending that I was flying along with them and stuff like that. Yeah. Right. And like at other times I had I was on a tightrope and all this kind of stuff. And I think that honestly, as a kid, it was a way for me to move myself out of the chaos of the street plane and up a little bit so that I wasn't in the melee, you know, just a little mental escape. And that kind of stuck with me when I first started painting those folks that are traveling. And they've shown up in a lot of different paintings, a lot of different forms and everything. But this one in particular is when I got the job at Highline College.
Oh,
So
gosh,
you
well,
could
there you
have
go.
chosen.
That was a very important one.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And so it's like the skies opened up, there's all this possibility. And, you know, I have this passion for wanting to make art accessible to everyone. And that's what it was about. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
But technically, just a little sidebar, this one, okay, so you know how we were talking about, you get really, sometimes you'll get really conservative, like I will anyways, and I won't want to take a risk,
Right.
right? So this one,
No idea what you're talking about. What do you say?
so with this one, up at the top, the sky, I was forcing myself not to noodle around with it. I was forcing myself to attack it and to put it in and to leave it. Let it be. Yeah, it was a tricky one.
It's
But
beautiful.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask some more technical questions?
Of course.
I'm interested in the dimensions.
Okay.
13 by 26 is interesting. I really like that sort of long, like sort of double wide, double tall idea and how much you can play with it. Tell me about your choice for that and the composition within it, within that form.
Yeah. I love the vertical rectangles. I love them, you know, and in the show, then you can see that I do a lot.
There's a few. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think vertical rectangle and square are my two faves. And I think it's for the vertical rectangle. Okay. So this is going to seem a little non sequitur type, but
I can take it.
I think that I first really started kind of becoming hypnotized with that proportion. I did a series in undergrad it was called the Coffin series, and and that was the shape. And I built all of the frames, and the stories were tough. They were really, they were human stories, but it was really tough to bring the beauty in, you know, but it stuck with me, right? And so I think that human proportion of like having to look up and down, so you're physically moving more, is really, I think it's the sculptor in me, right?
Oh yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And so and then compositionally, I just love how you can juxtapose these like big moves from corner to corner, and it just like it's acreage, right? It's just so much space. And so that's why I love the vertical compositions. And then this composition, because I think you'd asked about that as well, Liz, is
like what do you do with that long form for placing stuff on it? Yeah.
So like I really love like all of the movement and the kind of complexity of the bottom with all the wires.
Yeah.
It opens up and you just get more space. And so that contrast, I think that's what I really like about using that kind of a format.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That format is kind of, there's a lot of Asian art.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, the scroll. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've always really liked that too. I'm drawn to those.
Yeah.
I've tried playing with that long format as well, and I get caught up in trying to also make it a diptych.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, is the top good? Is the bottom good? Is the whole good? So
yeah.
Liz is a digital collage artist.
So I have the choice of chopping it in the, as the file. Yeah.
Too many choices.
Too many choices. That's it. All right. Do you want me to let go of this image?
Yeah, find one, Liz, because we can't see all the pieces you're looking at. So find one that looks interesting.
Stop it. Then I have to choose.
Look interesting.
Oh, wait, I could go into that mode and just scroll through until you see a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, a good one in the sense of talking.
Oh yeah, whatever you guys want to talk about I'm totally open.
Can I just ask, like, what else is going on around the studio? And I'm hearing voices, and
Oh, Shift is having also an artist talk.
they are at 2 as well.
No, they were having it at 1, but apparently it's going longer than.
Okay. So it is happening right there. Yeah, that's
And more
great.
importantly, it's important to go to galleries. There's always
Yes.
something going on.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So it's.
Yeah.
that's-
All right.
There are people coming in. Right? You hear human voices here again.
Exactly. That's so
We're hearing
exciting.
for a long time.
Yeah. All right. I'm just gonna start sharing in the middle, and we can go forward or back and see what happens.
okay. And I'll wait for you guys to prompt what you want me to talk about.
Oh.
Mhm.
All right. So here I am in the middle. Gonna go forward.
I would like to hear about that one.
Oh.
There you go.
Missing keys.
Oh man.
Yeah.
You just can pick the spicy ones right out of the rack.
Nice.
So this one has to do actually, so my father passed in 2000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. It's okay. He lived a long and mighty life. He was 82, and so yeah. However, the process of kind of as we enter toward, move towards passing and all of those stages and everything. So the crocosmia, right? I just think it's a beautiful plant, and it reminds me of dragons and power and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so so I chose the crocosmia, and then also that there are, it's in bloom. He's still here, but however, he's starting to go, but there's all of these other blooms that they're gone now, but they were there, right? So that, and then the missing keys is just, it's that basic human experience of when someone goes and you're like, crap, like there were so many more questions. And
I'm going through that. Yeah.
Right. And so those are the missing keys. And some of those questions are the keys to unlock healing. They're the keys to unlock mystery. They're the keys to unlock whimsy, all of that. And they're missing. And so, yeah, so that's
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. And so in all of my paintings, honestly, there is the human condition of suffering, right? In all of them. However, like I said before, it's my goal to create beauty. It's like there will, thank you.
Yeah. Truly.
There's always that pull of there's something that is a little bit of discomfort, right, in them. However, we're human and we have a choice, and I want to create beauty. So
yes,
that's where.
Well, and this is Steve again. This piece, it's quite a powerful plant growing out of what appears to be a very small receptacle. It is a mighty plant, and so there is quite a story just in that one image. And to be able to tell a story from the top of like you guys were talking about before, a long vertical painting to the bottom, connecting all that is quite a challenge sometimes. And this one is it's wonderful the way it does it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I love the background.
Thank you.
It's just really nice. And Žanetka is a acrylic artist, and I've heard other people, and I also originally thought they were oils. They very much appear to be oil paintings. And she used to be an oil painter that switched to acrylic, and she pulls it off really well.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Lynn. Yeah, I had I was trained as an oil painter, but I had a studio that the windows didn't open. And so I was like, okay, peace out. Not gonna work. I'm gonna go into.
I want to live.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I switched to acrylic, and then liked the layering, like the depth that you can get, and so just figured out techniques. And yeah, so there you go.
Nice.
Liz, I can see down at the bottom of the screen where the images are. Do you mind going 2 to the right?
Oh.
That's the way to do it. This one.
Oh, yeah, that's a great.
Look at that piece. It's fabulous.
I'm suspecting something's up here. What?
What is going on with this piece? It's full of like, there's just all this, I would call it chaos of machinery, and there are these little tiny presents.
Yeah.
Tell us about this piece a little bit.
It's good.
He's a good plant.
Yeah.
So this one, so it also has to do with my father. And my father truly he really was a mechanical genius. I mean, he was freaking brilliant with being able to build anything and understood mechanisms. And he was a mechanical engineer in Czechoslovakia. Of course, when we immigrated, he couldn't get a job being a mechanical engineer. So he would fix cars. And so he worked on Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, and he purchased lathes and would build out the parts for you. And so he
Whoa.
literally was booked out at least a year in advance. I'm talking even for an oil change. And so, yeah, because he would like tune your car, like, and it would run like it never ran out of the factory, you know?
Wow.
Mhm. So he was brilliant that way.
I guess.
Yeah, he really was. And so that's what all of that, the
Wow.
machinery and all that mechanization. But then again, it's like you're like, what becomes a barricade, right? Like what becomes like where you're also able to then separate yourself from other people and hold your gifts back. Do you know, it's like what is out of reach? What is, because again, he was brilliant. He was a brilliant man, but also there were jewels and gems and things that were definitely held back. And so that's what this is about. It's like the complexity of my father's personality.
Wow.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And it's interesting too, because even though there seems to be, a lot of, machinery and gears and pulleys and things, it's not dark.
No,
Mm-mm.
no,
It's
inviting.
actually quite a clean thing, which
Yeah.
is fascinating. It's not scary. It's just busy.
Yeah.
But this is part of where these kind of things help, because I didn't see any of that.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily my color palette. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to help Lynn with Instagram. I don't think I can make that work on Instagram. And so I'll pick some other ones that are like a pear or, whatever. But that is great. I love this aspect of hearing about art and seeing the next levels and hearing and understanding the next levels. It's great.
Well, the problem with that shape for Instagram too,
yeah.
right, Liz?
Oh, yeah. I've got plans for anything that's wide. I can do 2 of those, but this isn't also the case for coming in to look at it in person and
Yes,
seeing more. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess with Instagram you could do a section,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you
I can
couldn't
do
like
details.
really-
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it'd be fun to go in on those little red. Yeah.
yeah. That might be really still very interesting, even though you can't see. It might make you want to go see the whole thing. Right?
Mhm. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'll make a note.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. What other paintings?
I'll just start going forward unless you see something along the bottom. Good trick there, buddy.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I posted that one.
So that is a simple piece, but
Yeah.
just I would like to know, it's such a simple piece and you have such elaborate subjects, what this one has to say.
So this one's called Possible. And honestly, this one is about like within all of us. If you can imagine it, it's possible. That's really the crux of this. And so there's this giant pear, there's this hand holding it, and it's like, yes, having a pear this big, it really is possible. You can do this. And so it's kind of like I painted this definitely when I was kind of like emotionally just kind of like moving through some stuff, right?
Mhm.
And moving through to something new and trying to envision something new. And it's just like, dagnabbit, it's like, it's possible. I can do this,
That's awesome.
you know?
I like how you're your own therapist.
Totally.
Oh my gosh, art is totally that way. Yes.
You work through your own
Absolutely.
stuff so well.
Yeah, well, that's the whole, like, yeah, I mean, it's like, we all do that though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, and so, I don't mean to kind of pull any attention away from Žanetka, but anyone who's making a statement or an expression, be it a writer or a glass blower or something like that, they really have to work through whatever that activity is to get that idea out.
Mm.
And it's interesting that, this piece, it's literally like, I want a big pear. I get to have whatever I want. And it's fantastic that, so in a way, anybody working through trying to say something, they get a result that's unique. And this is, I think, one of those pieces. It's very simple, but it's quite happy.
Mhm. It is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, I love that your art is conceptual, because I think, a lot of people can look at something and do it, but it might not mean a lot. It's just a really nice painting of what it is. But to be able to do something that you see and recognize, but then have deeper meaning, I think that's really good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That one.
Okay, I'm not going very far here. Got it. I can do that.
Okay, so this one, so release, right? So it's a diptych. So there's a square on top and a rectangle on the bottom. So it's like, woo, my favorite. And it's funny because I can see it over Lynn's shoulder, but so if you look at the top section, you have the hands, and it's actually supposed to be kind of playing with, are you underwater or are you in the sky?
Oh.
And
Whoa.
you're welcome for that. So with the top part, so that's why it's like kind of like waves up above, but kind of like a little bit like sky, right? And then the strings on the hands, they're leading down, and then the bottom part of the diptych, right? So those are all bird cages, and they're different shapes of bird cages. And we all have these little cages that we've strapped all over ourselves that have little bits and bobs in them. And some are super precious and worth holding on to, and some you just got to get rid of. And that's what this is. And so some are being released and some aren't, right? And they're all different shaped bird cages. And the reason that I wanted it to be a diptych was so that you could literally hang it as far apart as you want.
Nice.
So that, again, I think it's the sculptor in me that is like paintings aren't just the image, they are an object that's taking up space in the world. And so I don't want it to ever be like plop art, like here it is just plopped on the wall, And so it's like it's got a mass to it. It's got a space to it.
Yeah.
So that's what that one's about.
Wonderful.
I saw the sky without even thinking about it being water, but now I can totally see both.
Nice. Well, and maybe because we all live in Seattle, and it does rain here, and when it's raining, it's like we are like in the water. It's like we're in an atmosphere. So I often think about that kind of topsy-turvy flipping. Where's the sky? Where's the water?
Yeah, water's in the sky. A lot of times.
All right. What else?
That one.
No,
I know a little bit about this one.
You do. Yeah, this has everything to do with my mom, actually. So when my father passed, they'd been married for 52 years. And so well, it's a long time. And it was a big transition, you know, and
Yeah.
so she was able to, she got this little dog. She's never had a dog before. She's no, you know, she just turned 82 and she's, you know, doing great and all this. And she got this little dog who has been a wonderful and beautiful companion to her that has really pulled her into a new life. And it's called symbiotic because also she's pulled that little dog into a new life, and they're just the cutest. I mean, really. And so she's sitting in one of my favorite chairs that she has that I just remember like forever that my parents had this furniture and everything. And so, and my mom, I mean, she's beautiful and she's elegant and,
Yeah,
you know,
clearly.
yeah, she's a pretty spectacular lady. And so that's what this is about.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this one. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. I mean, it's up to you. It's like whatever you guys have interest in.
Yeah, it continues on with a bit about your father, right?
It does,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so this one's called Too Much Salt. And
Holy crap, 8 by 24. Wow.
Yep. And so, you know, salt is really, really, really precious, right? But also salt, if you have too much of it, it can kill you, right? Kind of thing. And this had to do with my dad in terms of, like I was explaining, he was amazing. He was brilliant. There was a lot of complexity to my father. And at times there was too much complexity with my father, right? And,
Yep.
and that's where this is coming from. And then I was also thinking about how, you know, like, because I still, to this day, I don't know if this is like a genetic thing or what, but to this day, I don't know where I learned it, but if I spill salt, I always throw some over my left shoulder. I just do. So, and I was like, where in the heck did that come from? And then I looked it up when I was doing this painting, and it's, you throw salt over your left shoulder because you're trying to throw the salt in the devil's eye, because salt was so precious that if you spilled it, it was like
Can't waste it.
you can't waste it. You can't waste it. And so you're just like, yeah. So I was like, oh, well, so there you go.
Nice looking pile of salt.
Yeah.
These things you have to see in person because they're just really beautiful in person. Yeah, I'm curious.
About this one?
Yeah.
The underwater one? Yeah, so this one, it has far more whimsy in it than the seriousness of the previous ones that we've been talking about. And so if you look at the bottom, it's kind of like a little bit of a cityscape, right?
Yeah, are you trying to fool us again? That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yes, I am. Because basically the red in the sky, if in person, when you see the painting, you can see that they're apples that are floating. And I was just thinking about bobbing for apples, honestly. and I was just thinking, because I really love apples, and I just thought, what if there were huge apples in the sky and we're underwater? So I'm telling you, this was just a whimsical, just my love of
Great.
apples. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I definitely read water first, but
And I tried to make it subtle too, you know, like I don't want to clobber you over the head, like so that there's interpretation that you can bring to it.
yes.
No,
Yeah.
it's important to me.
Yeah. I love this palette. I love these colors.
It's awesome. It's up to you guys.
Oh, go
I'll
back
wait.
to the oranges.
Okay.
I was just
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So this one, it also has to do with my father. I mean, apparently, right? It's like when a parent passes, there's a lot to process. And this one, so one of my favorite memories of my dad is that when we immigrated to Los Angeles, it was during a time when there were still like orange tree orchards in the city. Like they were small, but they were still there. And we even had an orange tree in our backyard. And what we would do, and to me, I I remember it as we did this every day, but I don't know, but it felt like every day when my dad would come home, he would go to the orange tree and he would peel the oranges and he would eat them and he would hand me pieces of oranges. So I was like, of course, this little pipsqueak and getting these like juicy, delicious, dripping orange juice all over. And they were so
They're
good.
the best.
Yes, and like warm from the sun and all
Oh.
this.
Yeah.
So that's what, so then the unpeeled oranges, again, it's like he's passed. And so I have that memory, but there are many oranges that are again floating away
Mm.
that you could see in the water that are
Wow.
unpeeled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that's good too is, you know, Žanetka has the interpretation she put into it when she was painting it, but like you were saying, that the person that's looking at it can read different things from their own
Yeah,
life. into it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my wonderful brother-in-law looked at it and goes, looks like your basement's flooding. Like, of course it does, you know, he's awesome. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, yep.
Do you record these stories like on a site or anything?
I don't. I'm wondering if I should. I mean,
I don't mean record in the, but just like a
yeah,
little snippet of,
I
yeah,
just
the
to, like, write
background.
them out. I don't actually have them documented anywhere. I guess it's like I try to put as much as I can into the title,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
without it being too long.
Right.
Yep.
But I don't have like the cliff notes to them or
Yeah.
anything, you know.
want people
Well,
to-
and that goes to telling people too much. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, I'm happy to talk about them, but I don't want to impose
Your
my story on you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
I feel like there's a movement now that we're meant to be telling more of the story, and storytelling and connection is I mean, it's working for me. It's and I'm trying to get better at myself, but it's an interesting line that you have to draw of where do you stop telling the story and let someone else fill in their own.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same as a conversation, right? Which we've been missing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you say something and then you have to listen. And
Mhm.
so I painted it and now I'm listening, you know?
Yes,
Mhm.
I do.
Yeah, got to talk about it. I think we're going to end up talking about it.
Okay.
We'll go back to the
Totally fine.
magpie.
Okay, totally fine. So, so this one also had to do with my father, and basically it's called Unread. And this, I actually did work from a still life. I set up these books, and it was more of a meditation for me to do these paintings, to do this particular painting, and just thinking about everything that was unread about him.
Mhm.
You know, yeah. So.
All right. Making a note about the tall format. Okay. Does it loop around? I think it might loop around. Ooh, yes, it does.
Always.
Always. So this was actually, remember how I said for my studio practice, I'll set up a still life and I'll, you know, work from it and everything. So this was one of the still lives, and I chose that vase specifically because it had meaning to my husband. And so, and then he gave me the flowers, and he's a sweetheart. Yes. Super supportive. And so that's what it is. It's like he's always supporting me, and I really appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's a little tribute that way.
Aw.
Good job, Steve.
Well, geez.
Nice.
Well, I mean, look at this work. How could you not support it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Now, I have a memory about this piece, and I know it's, you know, is this one of those ones where you were like, you know what? I'm not going to noodle it. I am just going to do this thing.
Mm-hmm. It was. And where hey there, let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Yep. This one in particular, didn't want to noodle too much with the flowers. I wanted to like get in there and attack and paint. And then I didn't want to noodle too much with the vase, but I wanted them to be a different texture. And so again, it was like, okay, take care. I've noodled the flowers. And so let me just attack the transparency in the vase and the reflection and all of that, and just keep it fresh, keep it alive, keep it light. And so, yeah. And this one, I mean, it's 16 by 20. So it was, you know, it's pretty big. And so there was a lot of arm painting going on, you know, not a lot of, so.
I like the lost edge with the table. The lost edge there is nice.
Thank you. And then Steve got me more flowers. That's
And-
right.
I get a series. I get a series in here. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And
So
they're nice ones.
thank you. And so this one, the whole time I was painting them, I was just laughing and smiling because he got me more flowers, and it was very sweet. It was very sweet.
I love the crop on this composition.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious about this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, this also
What's under there?
Well, this has to do with my father. And so when my father passed, then my mom chose to have him cremated. And so I made a styrofoam box that was the proportion of the box that he was in, and draped this fabric over it. And so this was also painted from observation, so it's still life painting. And so again, it was a way for me to process, you know, the aspect of, okay, he's gone and it's covered, you know, and it's okay, and it can be beautiful. And there are, then it's kind of like, then there's continue, so there's the remains, and then there's the box, and then there's the fabric, and now there's the paint. So it's again this kind of like
Stepping back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how we move through life, right? There are moments where we're in the nucleus, and then there are times when we're moving out. And that's important to have that fluctuation. And I think it's important, and it's healthy to have that, right? It's like, go in and look, and then soften your gaze and just look around and realize how big everything really is, and it's okay. You know? So yeah, that was that meditation. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta talk about that one.
Okay, so it's called Entangled, and it really is just how we are all connected, how we are all enmeshed, and sometimes it feels heavy, sometimes it feels light, sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. And then this one, just compositionally, I wanted to make sure, like, I was very interested to make some beautiful negative space, you know. It was almost more important to me than the hands and the entanglement.
Yeah, I see that. I love this shape.
Yeah. And so, and again, similar to the focusing in, moving back, focusing in, moving back. And so, yeah. So whether we like it or not, we're all connected.
Yep.
And don't we know it more after this long year? Yeah.
Big time. Big time. Yeah.
More gears.
More gears.
Getting ahead. Yeah.
Factory, is that about cars?
No, it's more, this one was more about places, right? And so like there's the little, it's a water tower at the top, and those were like all over Philadelphia when I lived there. They were one of my favorite things. So it's like, I just loved them. Just this throwback to like holding water, and this would be water for the building. It would be water to put out a fire. It would, you know, and then just the congestion underneath this seemingly clean roof line. And then there's just all this stuff and that one little water tower and like, you know,
Interesting.
yeah. And so it depends, you know, you're kind of peeking, looking under the covers. It's like you're looking behind the scenes.
Mm,
So that's what I was thinking about with that one.
I would not have known that. It's really good. Yeah. Such appealing shapes.
Yeah. And gears, right? They're
Mhm.
beautiful, and they do things, and like the inner workings of a wind-up clock. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, gorgeous.
Yeah. Or
You
a
know?
little watch.
Mhm.
Tiny little gears.
Mhm.
Yeah. There she is.
Yes. Finding a quiet place to read.
Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly. You just said it, Liz. That's what it's about. You know, really, it's I think I was painting this again. There was a lot going on. I can't remember the exact circumstances. It was probably close to when my father was passing, but there was, I think, other complexities going on in the world, and I just wanted a break, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was very much interested in the figure is solid, right? The book on her lap is solid, and it's disproportionate. Yes, and but she's comfortable. She's like,
she's happy.
Yeah, she's happy. And then I was thinking a lot about like, well, what if you could sit on a cloud? Like, you know, like, and it would be soft and it'd be quiet. And then there'd be all of these ladders that would emerge when you needed them. And so it was my happy place.
Nice.
Well, I'm really glad that we got to see this painting and the one before it kind of right next to each other, because in this one, we're not really sure how all this works. You're just showing the result. Like, here's a happy thing happening.
Yep.
And in the other one, you can still see a peaceful thing at the top, but it's more focused on this is the way it works underneath people.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Those are the gears for the ladders. I gotcha.
That's right. There you go.
Well, but you have two different, you know, completely different paintings and two completely different kind of attitudes, and your ability to show either this is the way things work or just here is the result, I think is just, it shows a really wide breadth of what you can express. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, son.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. So, you know, the earlier question of like the nuts and bolts of studio practice and stuff, it's like, I think the most frightening thing to realize is you can make anything.
Yeah, that is frightening. Yes.
Very
Terrifying. Yes.
Yeah.
You can make anything. And so finding the courage, right, to be like, I have this thought, I have this idea, I would like to sit in a cloud and like read this tome, right? And then having the courage to try to like bring it to life, you know. And there are plenty of paintings that have never been seen outside the studio, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm not saying that I'm that great at it, but because it's terrifying, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're putting it out there and you're seeing if there's a conversation. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love this one.
I do too.
Oh, this one, gaining a new perspective, right? Oh man. So I used to paint a lot of sheep. They're also another one of my little icons, and beach balls and things like that. And part of why I love to paint sheep is because I think that they get a bad rap. You know, it's like they're like, you know, like supposed to not be very
Stupid.
intelligent, right? And they're just kind of like, meh, and like, you know, people make fun of them and stuff. But they're so cool.
They're pretty little guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been stared down by a sheep, but it's like there's stuff going on in that brain. I mean, they got it going on. So anyways, so I think that they're I think they're beautiful. And so this one was very much about, you know, stuff's going on in your life. Well, yes, people say change your perspective and everything, but it's like, yeah, go stand on a beach ball at the edge of a cliff and then see what's really important to you. You know, it's like, then you will know, right? And so here's this sheep like seeing into the future. So yes, so sometimes the paintings are silly, but yes, there you go.
It tells it. Yeah. Stand on a beach ball at the edge of a cliff.
And it's almost like an inspirational photo.
It is. He
Yay!
looks so brave. He doesn't look afraid. He's just standing there on that beach ball, about ready to go over the edge.
Yeah,
He doesn't know, you
he's
know.
tough.
Yeah.
He's tough.
Yeah.
And if it starts going, he'll deal with it,
Yeah.
you know?
He'll land on the soft side of his body.
Exactly. Exactly.
Flip upside down. Or something.
Exactly.
That's really good.
This actually stresses me out because this feels like the year that has been as well. It's like, I'm done with the beach balls and the cliff people.
I want a nice beach chair on.
Yeah.
Besides that, I love the palette and the,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Whew, okay, moving on.
Well, I definitely am interested in more surrealistic like imagery and things like that. Just like enough to make
Yes.
Yeah.
just enough. Like
Yep.
I'm not interested in you being able to write it off as like that could never happen. I'm
Mhm.
more interested in the psyche of the
Mhm.
human. Like,
Absolutely.
could that happen? Like really? So yeah.
So here, there.
Okay, so this one, it's also a diptych, and there are two squares, one very little square, one big square. And this one has everything to do with where you are and where you are not. Honestly, it's just that simple. And so which one is here and which one is there? And also how the nest is like, it's hidden within the big, you know, landscape of the trees. And so you can't quite see it, but you know it's there. So it's
Yeah.
just playing with all of that dimension. And then again, with the diptych, again, you can move it as far apart or as close as you want it to be to tell your story, you know, so it can change.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
Yeah. This is the one I've been using in all the PR. So this is how clouds are really made.
Yep. So this has, again, everything to do with just daydreaming, really, and looking outside and seeing that clouds are actually really kind of purple, or they can be green, and they can be all. And I love grapes. And so here are these huge grapes, there's scaffolding underneath them. And as they ripen, they just kind of float up and become clouds. I mean, it really, this one was just more
It's
of
fun.
yeah, and like just daydreaming and like kind of like what if that happened,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's delightful.
Yes, I love it.
I really like where it's placed in the gallery, and I'm wondering if we can risk moving the computer if I stop sharing for a second and you can tilt and show where it is.
Let me see.
it out of the
Or
way.
not. Oh, yes.
Can you see
Right.
it?
Hey, there it is.
And there's Robert, my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the chairs and that colored wall. Oh, I thought that was beautiful.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's
Yeah.
all by itself over there. It's its own
Yeah.
space.
Yeah,
That's
the
really good.
whole way that the show is hung is really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's really good.
Nice. All right, I can go back if you'd
Sure.
like.
Hang
Oh.
because it's beautiful work. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, going back to sharing. Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, let me make sure I get the right screen. Coming up. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So inside, outside.
Mhm. So this one, it's another diptych. It's 2 squares. And those are seashells that I actually picked up off.
Wow.
Yeah, like,
Those are nice ones.
oh yeah, like it, gosh, must have been in North Carolina,
Oh.
probably like 30 years ago or something like that. Yeah. And this was another one where, so do you remember how I mentioned how I made the foam core box,
Yeah,
right?
that's
That
right.
was the same proportions as my father's remains and everything. That I made it hollow, and that one seashell is on top of it, one seashell is inside of that
Wow.
styrofoam box. Yeah, and then during this time, I was doing a lot more still lifes because I needed to process through painting, but I couldn't, it's like I couldn't invent right then, because it's like it was shortly after he'd passed and everything. And so it offered me a place of quiet to, like, I knew what to do. To observe and to respond and to interpret onto the canvas. And so then it got my verbal mind out of the way so that the rest of me could catch up and process. You know, you do. And so it's very much meditative. And then I specifically, like with this composition, it was important to me that the rectangle that I built was not closed in the painting. So again, it's a diptych, so it's open, right? So again, possibility and like releasing his spirit, releasing whatever I felt, really just moving on, just letting it go, you know? Yeah, I know. It's like we can all relate. We can all relate.
Yes.
This is all good therapy for me, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm.
Yeah.
So long distance.
Long distance. So that was my phone. I had a dial, like a
Fancy,
red. Yes, it was really fancy. I still have it. It's not plugged in. I can't get rid of it. I love it as an object, right? Because it's like you hold I hold memories in objects, right? And so it's like there might be this crumb somewhere of like, and it's like, please don't throw that away.
I relate to that completely.
And so I have this phone, and you know, it's all of the people that I love, right? It's like reaching out to the people in Philadelphia that I still adore, that are so important to me. It's so part of my foundation, and reaching out to people just all over the world that are still important to me. And even locally, it's like, you know, reaching out, it's about that.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And so again, as a diptych, that connection might be really far, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's a great
Now
point.
we can see each other in person,
I know.
not just talk on the phone.
I know. I know.
But having that option has been so great
Yes.
to keep the connections going. Yeah. And can continue as we, I mean, it feels like we're going to scatter more because a lot of people can be remote now that they didn't quite. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Hey, look.
There, we're back. So last but not least,
Right.
Magpie Moon.
Yes. So I also lived in Idaho for a time, right? And there are a lot of magpies there, and they are ornery little birds, but I think they are so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful and so smart. And I just remember these beautiful big sky evenings where it was just, the sun had just gone down and the blue and the moon. I mean, it literally, so it was just a memory of this and the quiet and just the peace of that. And these beautiful, beautiful magpies. So it really is just a tribute to a memory like that.
Nice way to end the paintings.
Fabulous.
It's a nice happy one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that was wonderful, and I learned a lot, and I thank you so
Yeah.
much, Žanetka.
Welcome.
And thank you, Steve, for what you added.
Oh, thank you for having me. Wonderful.
Know her well. so-
Good questions. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
really
another question or two?
Yes, absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Yes, yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Make them nice. That's right.
Everything. Um, so the images that we've seen today, you know, they're from a certain time, they're from a certain range. And can you tell us about some other work that maybe is more figurative, or, you know, this body of work? It's kind of a foggy question. Like, I happen to know that you're very good at drawing a figure,
Mhm.
and, you know, and so is it a deliberate choice? Well, it must be, obviously, like, in certain times to concentrate on the figure or not, or the images I'm looking at are all these kind of almost like I'm looking out the school window and having a daydream or something, and they're delightful in that way. But is there, I don't know, can you talk more about the figure a little bit, and just kind of, it didn't really play into this particular body of work, even though it's about people.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I don't
Mm.
know, it's kind of a loose conversation starter, I guess, not really a question.
Mhm, mhm. Yep. So let's see. So the figure in these paintings, you would see more like the hands, right? In the
Yeah,
paintings,
yeah.
everything, and it's purposeful in this because. So let me think. How do I answer this? The paintings can be about topics that are either really big topics or small topics,
Right.
but I remove the human image
Mhm.
so that you're not caught up in the human image of it. Does that make
Right. Oh, yes.
You're
Makes
the
perfect sense.
human that is
Yeah.
involved in looking at the paintings. You're the one that, like, I am sculpting where your eyes are moving with the paint. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
And
Makes
so
Completely.
perfect sense. Yeah.
okay, and so then I also do draw the figure and I sculpt the figure. I love to sculpt the figure. It's like, I mean, if you look on my website, there's figurative sculptures, right? And those tend to be like, I'll exaggerate the form more, and it can't be such a specific story because it's the human body,
Mhm.
and there's such incredible complexity that I feel like I can only deal with one kind of line of the story at a time.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes
Oh, yeah.
sense.
Well, it's, you know, I just basically kind of was bringing up the figure and how it related to these stories or not. And that's a really nice kind of fill in to kind of just explain a little bit of how important the figure is and how detailed it becomes. And there's all these other meanings associated with it that
Mhm.
if you don't have the figure in your work, you know, some of the pieces do, like you said, the hands, and some
Yes.
you can't see somebody who, let's say, knocked the salt over on the table,
Right.
or you
Right.
can't see
Exactly.
who set up the scaffold, but there's evidence of
Mhm.
life and things are happening.
Mhm.
And so very different to have a figure in there versus not.
Yes, it is. I think it's really it working with the figure should not be taken lightly. Is what I
Excellent.
think, you know,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it's so beautiful and it's so perfect in all of its forms, and it's so complex
Mhm.
in terms of the story and the implication and that I think that working with the figure requires the utmost of respect for the body. And so it's like I said, it's important to, like, you're the figure involved with the paintings. You're the figure that if you are looking at the beach ball and the sheep, you're the figure that's like, I don't want to be on that beach ball right now. You know, right.
Get off.
Right. And then, but I do love to work with the figure in terms of sculpting it. But it's a much larger story. Like, it's, I don't know if I'm really expressing what I'm trying to get out, but it's faster to paint than it is to sculpt, not just in terms of technique, but in terms of how much information you can put into an image. And then with the figure, the complexity of the figure inherently like starts to overshadow the story unless you're really careful.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways,
That was
I mean, I love to sculpt. Love it.
That was a delightful insight into how deliberate you are with each of these images. There's no happenstance. It's very deliberate. That's quite nice to, thank you for sharing all that.
Okay, you're
But
welcome.
we do have two that do have the full figure. And
Yes,
that's the one with your
Yes.
mom.
Yes.
And then the one where she's sitting
Yes.
on a cloud.
that's right.
And those both, I mean, I think they're wonderful. And I think you can put yourself into
Mhm.
those, especially the one
Right.
where she's sitting on a cloud. You know, I
Yeah.
would love to put myself
Oh
into
my
that.
gosh, yes, right, right. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do a lot of figure work in your other work that isn't here, was this a complete series or was this a selection over time or?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question. So in putting this show together, like I said, last year was just, it was what it was for everybody, you know?
Not good.
No, and so I really was not, like, I was thinking, but I couldn't produce anything. And so I pulled from multiple bodies of work to put this show together.
Okay.
And it was actually really serendipitous because it showed me that that even though there's like, you know, a sheep on a beach ball, it relates directly to the oranges on the table. I mean, it's like, so it's this larger story that I've been working on. And maybe it's like I've done chapters. And so now here are pieces from those chapters. And so it was really fulfilling for me to be like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Like, I'm not a one-hit wonder. You know, like it's, you know, like there's this continuity, there's this thread throughout it all. So yeah. And I'm super curious where this is going to take me, because we spoke about this at the beginning, like when I got to the gallery today, where it's like, you know, having the work up and being able to see it. And so now which direction, what's it going to point at? You know, what am I going to do next?
What's the seed out of this? Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm waiting to see from a lot of artists because, you know, COVID has been different and difficult for everybody.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
all moving forward, what is it going to be, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh.
Do you know what you're going to do, Liz? Do you have a direction?
Yeah, I've got stuff to work on. And when we did the show where you had asked us for COVID created work, and when we did this similar thing, it was great to hear how everybody had been processing. And in a weird way, creativity is one thing you can keep doing somewhat, even if it is just for the 10 minutes in the sketchbook. Yeah. But it builds, you know, stuff builds out of that. So, yeah.
And even going in and cleaning your studio.
Yes.
You know,
what is this cleaning you speak of? I don't do this cleaning.
I tend to have a messy studio a lot of times. So when I go in and just like, I have no inspiration, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I start putting pencils away or organizing papers.
I'll take a note to try that sometime.
Yeah.
Nah. Just leave it messy. No, having open studios is what gets me to clean up.
Exactly.
Yes, that's more. Yep.
So Steve, you said you had a couple questions.
Oh yeah, right.
I did, and I'll you know what, it'll be the exact same thing where I'm just gonna kind of say some things, and Žanetka, you can tell us what your reaction is, because I think the first one wasn't really a question, but here we go. You taught at the Art Institute for 18 years, and you have switched to a different region. It's out of town, let's say. And have you gained an inspiration from working with the people at Highline that's different from what you got from the people at the Art Institute? So I would call them, you know, they were, well, that's my question. There you go.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have to think for a split second. So one of the things that I was very pleasantly surprised about when I started teaching at Highline was that those students at Highline, they're really smart. They're really, really smart, and they're so earnest, and they're just hungry. They're hungry to learn, and they produce beautiful work. Yeah, sometimes they can be a little cranky. I'm not, just like all happy rainbows and stuff, but I just found inspiration from this kind of this earnest and honest like hunger, and at the Art Institute, yeah, those students were awesome as well, but they entered a program that they were super focused, and they were like laser beams, like wanting this information, and they had this goal and they were going. So it was just a totally different energy. So again, at Highline, they are also really focused on trying to move, themselves through college and everything, like all college students. But there really is just this genuine earnestness that is like a little bit more open, which is really just nourishing for me.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The authenticity or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I am grateful for the students I worked with at the Art Institute. They were freaking brilliant, but it was a different energy. Like it was an urban art school. Like right there, there's a different energy. We're just like, let's get this going. So yeah, so I think that, and it just excites me, right? It just excites me to be able to bring fine arts and to I just think honestly, like one of the most important things that people can study is how to create. That's it. And where you take that and what you do with it, that's for you to discover. But I really do think, the ability to study something that doesn't have one right answer.
There you go.
Right. And the ability to study something where there is this immense discomfort that you have to be okay with until you figure out the answer for today. Like talk about like,
and you're the only one that can figure out that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Talk about like a recipe for trying to like be a good citizen in the world. Like, like.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that was a wonderful, thank you. You did a really good job. I learned so much, and thank you, Liz, for your contributions, and Steve.
Great. This has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, it has.
Very valuable.
Wonderful.
I really enjoyed it. And again, I'm so honored to have my work in your gallery. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. And I hope you'll all come and see the works in real life, because you really need to. It's very much more beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us. And
all right, well, thank you.
And,
all right, take care.
Next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.